Judges put Peter and Erin in last place, but did you agree? There's still time to cast your vote and make sure your favourite stays in the competition. Strictly Come Dancing, the results next on BBC One. Hollywood star and artistic director of the Old Vic, Kevin Spacey, joins Andrew Marr for Sunday AM tomorrow morning here on BBC One from 9.
For these patients, the surgery they must undergo carries huge risks.
It's one of the last great frontiers.
For their surgeons, one slip could have terrible consequences. The astonishing bravery of the doctors and patients at London's Brain Hospital.
It's just wonderful to be alive.
Wednesday at 9 on BBC One.
Happy anniversary.
It's a digital radio. I can listen to 6 music.
All the Ashes live. What?
Was that all?
I thought you liked it.
I do, it's just not very expensive. So, 8 years, 2 kids, worth about 50 quid, yeah?
It's no tuning. Just goes straight to the station.
To get more from the BBC, do digital. Call 08700 10 10 10.
Environment on the planet and home to half of the world's species. Explore tropical rainforests tomorrow night as the journey continues at 9. Right now on BBC One, it's Journey's End for one couple.
Lines are now open for the remaining 6 couples. Remember, you are voting for your favourite. To vote for Matt and Lilia, call 0901 121 4001. To vote for Louisa and Vincent, add 02. To vote for Carol and Matthew, add 04. For Emma and Darren, add 06. To vote for Mark and Karen, add 13. And finally, to vote for Claire and Brendan, add 14.
There's everything you need to know about Strictly Come Dancing in this official behind-the-scenes guide to the series.
Jungles, the tropical rainforests, are home to half of the world's species. Planet Earth, as you've never seen it before. The journey continues, tomorrow at 9 on BBC One.
Young teenagers are starting to play a dangerous game. At pocket money prices, it makes you feel part of the crowd. But early addiction causes liver disease and long-term brain damage. Booze, what every teenager needs to know. Panorama, tomorrow at 10:15 on BBC One.
The news now on BBC One with Moira Stewart.
Tony Blair appears to admit the situation in Iraq has turned into a disaster. But Downing Street says his comments in a television interview were a straightforward slip of the tongue. Freedom after 18 years on Pakistan's death row. Mirza Hussain is back in Britain. It's mission accomplished for Tom Cruise as he marries Katie Holmes in Italy. And England come back from the brink to finally clinch victory at Twickenham. Good evening. Tony Blair has appeared to admit the violence in Iraq since the invasion has been a disaster. Tonight, Downing Street said his words in a television interview were a straightforward slip of the tongue. The Prime Minister is in Pakistan for talks with President Musharraf on further cooperation in the war on terror. This report from Robin Brandt begins with flash photography.
Tony Blair is hundreds of miles away tonight, but the Prime Minister knows that Pakistan is key to tackling the terror threat back home in Britain. MI5 has warned that British terror suspects get training and help in the country. The Prime Minister will meet President Musharraf tomorrow. He'll confirm that Britain is increasing its aid to Pakistan. The money will be used to tackle extremism in schools and boost the intelligence services there. But Iraq remains an inescapable issue for the Prime Minister. In an interview with Al Jazeera, he conceded the violence since Saddam was overthrown has been a disaster.
So far it's been, pretty much of a disaster.
It has, but you see, what I say to people is...
He went on to say insurgent groups linked to Al-Qaeda or Iran were to blame for the bloodshed from attacks like this. Another car bomb in Tikrit today. Downing Street said the comment was a straightforward slip of the tongue. Others say it was the truth.
Referring to Iraq as a disaster is quite an understatement. It clearly is a catastrophic political blunder and clearly now a strategic failure. And I think the sooner the Prime Minister realises his failings with Iraq, then perhaps the better off the situation will be.
While Tony Blair was heading for Pakistan, the Chancellor Gordon Brown was showing he too can be prime ministerial on a trip to Iraq. Once the flak jacket was off, he met British troops. He too promised money to help Iraqis rebuild Basra. If and when Gordon Brown returns to Iraq, he could be Prime Minister. It will be a place sure to occupy his thoughts for a long time to come. Robin Brandt, BBC News.
Well, earlier I asked our political editor Nick Robinson, who's travelling with the Prime Minister, whether Mr Blair's comments could be dismissed as a slip of the tongue.
Well, that is exactly what Downing Street say it was. A slip of the tongue, they say, that he only half heard the question he was being asked, that he was concentrating so much on the answer he wanted to give, insisting that violence in Iraq was not the fault of some planning error, but was because there was a deliberate strategy to undermine Iraq by terrorists from within and from outside. They insist, yes, it was a slip of the tongue. Some tongue, some slip, Moira, because, of course, in those two words, it has, he has confirmed what so many of his critics have alleged, that what has happened in Iraq since the war has been, to quote, pretty much a disaster. The damage, really, is already done. It doesn't matter how it's explained away.
And what does he hope to achieve in Pakistan?
He is here in Pakistan for talks with President Musharraf, who is an unlikely ally in the war on terror, but a vital ally. Britain is extraordinarily grateful for the cooperation of the Pakistani security services in combating people often coming here from Britain and then returning to then threaten Britain with terrorist attacks. And the Prime Minister will not only thank President Musharraf, he's come here bearing gifts, doubling development aid for this country, almost £500 million, much of it to actually be spent on reforming the Pakistani education system, the madrasa system. Those are the Islamic schools that it is feared are all too often feeding people with a hatred of the West, which then leads on to violence.
Nick Robinson speaking to me earlier this evening. A British man freed after spending 18 years on death row in Pakistan has arrived back in the UK. Mirza Tahir Hussain described his freedom as a great gift and said he wanted to get to know his family again. He was released from prison after having his death sentence commuted by President Musharraf. Mark Simpson reports.
Welcome home. Back in Britain, in the arms of his brother. After spending half his life on death row in Pakistan, Tahir Hussain seemed overwhelmed by the attention. And compared to the fresh-faced teenager who left Leeds in 1988, it's difficult to believe he's now only 36 years old.
I'm glad to be back home again. Thank you.
I'm glad to be back home again, thank you very much, was all he could muster, before a statement was read out on his behalf.
It has been a tremendous strain to be separated from my family and loved ones. I thank God for giving me the faith and strength to persevere.
This is where he's now going to live, at the family home in Leeds. His father died 4 years ago, but his mother is still alive, and after an 18-year absence, she's ready to welcome him home. She was able to watch him arrive in London late last night on television. While she has yet to see him face to face, those who have say he is coping well.
It speaks volumes about the man and how he has channeled what would have broken most people into something positive, and I think that's quite remarkable.
His priority now is to recover. This time last week he was facing execution. Tonight he's preparing for a family reunion. Mark Simpson, BBC News, Leeds.
2 children and their mother have died in a house fire in Leicester. Tonight, detectives said they believe the blaze was started deliberately from inside the house. Police were called to the property by the woman's partner, who discovered the fire after returning from work. Rajesh Merchandani reports.
Blackened net curtains give a glimpse of what could have happened at the house in DuPont Gardens in the New Parks area. Police say the fire damage was only minor, but inside were 3 bodies, a 27-year-old woman and her 2 children, a 5-year-old girl and 3-year-old boy.
I mean, you can't believe it that you're there 1 minute and she's gone next.
It's a bit shocking, because I've got 2 young ones as well. Around this area, you won't think, because it's quiet around here.
No way for a child to go at that age, is it?
One resident told us the woman may have been depressed after losing a baby in the summer. The bodies were found by the woman's partner in the early hours of this morning. He doesn't live at the house, but went there after finishing work. Police say he is not the main focus of their investigation. Police say no one else was in the house at the time and no one else was injured, but they do believe the fire may have been started deliberately. The bodies were taken to Leicester Royal Infirmary for post-mortem examinations. Forensic tests at the scene and house-to-house inquiries in the area have been taking place all day. But the word many are using to describe the events of this quiet close is tragedy. Rajesh Merchandani, BBC News, Leicester.
A man has appeared in court in Newcastle charged with murdering his 2 children, his former girlfriend and her brother. Neil Crampton, who's 34, was remanded in custody. He'll appear at Newcastle Crown Court in 10 days' time. A service to commemorate the 1st anniversary of the death of PC Sharon Beshanivsky has taken place in Bradford. The policewoman was shot dead as she investigated an armed robbery in the city. Her colleague, PC Teresa Milburn, who survived the shooting, was comforted by fellow officers as she stood in front of the memorial to PC Beshanivsky. President Bush is in Vietnam to meet Asian leaders, and he's insisted the mistakes made there more than 30 years ago would not be repeated in Iraq. He's also spent time with American soldiers who were still looking for the bodies of the thousands who went missing in action. From Hanoi, our Asia correspondent, Andrew Harding.
Sifting the earth for bones. These Vietnamese villagers have been hired to hunt for the remains of an American Navy pilot. His plane crashed into these fields 34 years ago. Still haunted by its defeat here, Washington spends huge sums searching for the bodies of missing soldiers, almost 2,000 of them. Today, American troops from a younger generation are on site to help out. Most have seen action in Iraq, making this experience all the more poignant.
We promise our soldiers, sailors, airmen, and Marines that we will bring them home. I think that our government has promised their families that we will bring them home. And I think that that allows us as soldiers to go into harm's way and know that our government, our families, will always find a way to bring us home.
But does America have other lessons to learn from Vietnam? George Bush is visiting the country this weekend and insisting he won't make the same mistakes in Iraq as were once made here.
We'll succeed unless we quit. One lesson is that we tend to want there to be instant success in the world. And the task in Iraq is going to take a while.
George Bush is understandably keen not to draw too many comparisons between America's defeats in Vietnam
and today's chaos in Iraq, but the parallels are hard to ignore. 30 years after the conflict here, this place is peaceful and prospering. Will the same be true one day in Baghdad? Andrew Harding, BBC News, Hanoi.
Keeping the cameras away from Tom Cruise's wedding in Italy today proved to be mission impossible. They were out in force, along with dozens of celebrities and hundreds of star spotters, at Lake Bracciano near Rome, where the Hollywood star married Katie Holmes. David Silito sent this report.
It was like something out of a fairy tale, a candle-lit wedding in a hilltop castle, albeit one that has spent the day under siege, buzzed by news helicopters and scrutinized by the long lenses of the press photographers. And the people of Bracciano certainly didn't have the best seats, but every vantage point was used. However, all that most of them saw was a series of speeding, blacked-out limousines. Nevertheless, there was a glimpse of Tom Cruise and, if you were quick, Katie Holmes. But stars such as Jennifer Lopez and Will Smith, who had been seen on their way to Bracciano, passed into the castle largely unseen. It was something of an anticlimax for a town that had drafted in dozens of extra police and a civil protection team. The couple, the Scientology service, and the party were all kept far away from the crowds. The only communication, an official confirmation that Tom Cruise and Katie Holmes had got married.
But at least after all those weeks of rumour and speculation, a wedding has taken place inside the castle of Bracciano. However, what exactly has happened is anyone's guess, unless you happen to be one of those A-list celebrities. David Silito, BBC News, Bracciano.
Now, with news of a win for English rugby and the rest of today's sport, here's Sean Fletcher.
Maura, thanks very much indeed. Good evening. England's rugby players have avoided a record 8th defeat in a row thanks to a narrow win over South Africa at Twickenham. The victory by 23 points to 21 has relieved some of the pressure on head coach Andy Robinson. Francis Collings reports.
The face of a coach under real pressure to put the wheels back on his once sweet chariot, and his mood won't have been helped by another sloppy England pass. It looked odds on for another soft intercepted try early on, until the white flash of Josh Lucy's saving tackle. An early exchange with the boots saw the teams level at 6-all, but then came the slickest of moves from South Africa's backs, allowing fly half Butch James to score in the corner. A double whammy with his English counterpart Charlie Hodgson injured in the same move. And with another Springbok try in the second half from Akona Undugane, England were 18-6 down. But while they may lack incision, there is a beating heart inside this team. Mark Cueto scored a desperate try, which Andy Goode converted, and then World Cup winner Phil Vickery wriggled over to put England level. The conversion gave them the victory, and the relief was apparent, especially from the England coach.
It's been a tough couple of weeks. It's been a tough couple of months in some respects, and yeah, I thought that second half performance in the last 20 minutes was superb and just showed how England can play and what we can do.
This coming Wednesday, it's going to be 3 years to the day since England actually won the World Cup. This team do not look like World Cup winners, but at least the losing streak is now over, and for now the head coach Andy Robinson still has a job. Francis Collings, BBC News at Twickenham.
Meanwhile, Scotland made it 5 wins in a row at Murrayfield with a 34 points to 22 win against the Pacific Islanders. Their victory was marred by the injury of 2 key players, though, ahead of next weekend's game against Australia. The Scots went on to score 4 tries in the match, this one by Dave Callum, his first in international rugby. We're now a third of the way through the Barclays Premiership football season. Match of the day will have all of the goals immediately following the news, so if you're avoiding the results till then, you'd better divert your attention for the next minute or so. 2-goal Wayne Rooney inspired a comeback win against Sheffield United to keep Manchester United on top of the table. As expected, the champions Chelsea keep up the chase. A curling free-kick gem from Jeremy had the beating of West Ham. But at the Emirates Stadium, Arsenal lost ground. Substitute Thierry Henry rescued a point against Newcastle United in a 1-1 draw. In the day's other games, Everton beat Bolton 1-0. Manchester City emerged 3-1 winners over Fulham. Liverpool drew 0-0 at Middlesbrough. Portsmouth moved up into 3rd place after a 2-1 success against Watford. And for Charlton, new manager, same story. A 9th defeat for the Premiership's bottom side, this time under Les Reed against Reading, 2-0. In Scotland, Celtic continue to run away with the Premier League title race. Gordon Strachan's side crushed Inverness Caledonian Thistle 3-0 to move some 18 points ahead of Hearts and Rangers, who meet tomorrow. In fact, Aberdeen's 2-0 win over St Mirren moved them into second place in the table for the time being. Wins for bottom side Dunfermline, Kilmarnock and Hibs, who walloped a hapless Motherwell 6-1. Now, Great Britain's rugby league team have missed out on reaching next weekend's Tri-Nations final. They had to avoid defeat against Australia in Brisbane this morning, but lost by 33 points to 10. Brent Tate sealed the victory for Australia, who led throughout the match. They'll now meet New Zealand in the final. Great Britain's players return home, having won only one of their 4 matches. The time is drawing ever closer when England will take to the field in defence of the Ashes in Australia, and they'll resume on 303 for 6 on the final day of their last warm-up game. It's in Adelaide against South Australia. After losing 3 quick wickets, England's performance was rescued by Ian Bell, who showed his form with a stunning innings. He rattled off 12 fours in an innings of 132 and showed his delight at getting his century. The Ashes start next Thursday. And that's all for the sport from me for now. Moira,
thank you. The main news tonight, Downing Street has downplayed comments from Tony Blair, apparently admitting the situation in Iraq has turned into a disaster. You can see more on all of today's stories on BBC News 24. And in tomorrow's Sunday AM, starting at 9 o'clock, Andrew Marr will be talking to Henry Kissinger. But from Sean, me and the news team, it's good night.
The music he just can't live without. Writer Stephen King reveals his Desert Island Discs to me, Kirsty Young, tomorrow morning at 11:15 on BBC Radio 4.
Hello again. It's pretty cold out there. If you're looking at the night sky tonight, there'll be a widespread frost developing. Add to that some icy stretches on the roads, particularly in Scotland, and it's here we have a Met Office severe weather warning. Still a few more showers to come overnight. They're pulling away from Northern Ireland, a few wintry ones heading into Scotland, northwest England, possibly 1 or 2 in Wales, and it's as those move through and temperatures fall away that we've got that ice risk across many northern and western areas. Widespread frost may just escape the frost in the extreme southeast of England, any rain in Kent clearing away, and most of us will actually start the day cold and sunny, but as the wind strengthens we blow in more cloud from the west, and we're going to see some rain pushing in as well. But ahead of it, many eastern areas should have a lovely day. It's looking good through the southeast of England, East Anglia, much of the Midlands, lots of sunshine around, still quite cold at 8 or 9 degrees, but sunny skies all the way up into Yorkshire. Far northwest of England by 3 o'clock could see a few spots of rain, and by then we'll see some wetter weather pushing into Scotland. The rain preceded for a while, particularly over the hills, by some snow, and it will be turning windy through the afternoon as well, turning very windy and wet in the afternoon for Northern Ireland, and by the evening it could be quite stormy in the Irish Sea, so potentially some ferry disruption here. And we'll see wetter, windier weather working its way into Wales in the afternoon. For the far southwest of England, largely dry but cloudy. We're all going to see some rain though overnight, and it will be very windy indeed. We'll see the last of the rain clearing the southeast on Monday morning, sunshine and blustery showers following on behind, and temperatures 8 to 11.
All the action from the Premiership Match of the Day is next on BBC One.
17 disappearances within the last 5 months.
It's not human.
None of the bodies have ever been found.
No one's safe.
1 minute they're here, the next gone.
You can't fight them, they're too strong. Every 10 years, it takes us again. Harvest. Do you ever get scared, Jack?
Torchwood continues tomorrow at 10 on BBC Three. For now on BBC One, an update on tonight's National Lottery, starting with the Thunderball numbers, which are 5, 12, 14, 15 and 28. The Thunderball itself is number 14. Early indications show that there are 3 winners of the top prize. The dream number is 2, 7, 6, 3, 0, 8, 4. Early indications here show that there are over 92,000 winning tickets on the game tonight. And finally, in the main lotto draw, the winning numbers are 1, 19, 20, 32, 42 and 46. The bonus ball is 49. It looks like there are no lucky jackpot winning tickets tonight, so the jackpot for the next draw will be an estimated £8 million.
It's back. Highlights through the red button every night at 10. Extended highlights every night on BBC Two. Ball-by-ball coverage on Radio 5 Live Sports Extra. Latest news and debate online. The biggest showdown of the year starts Thursday. Ready? The Ashes. Catch every ball on the BBC.
Gene Hackman in Oscar-winning form in the classic crime drama The French Connection at 11:45 here on BBC One. But first, Match of the Day with Gary Lineker.